Specialized populations and methodologies, ethical challenges in pediatric and geriatric studies. Introduction. In pediatric trials, pediatric populations are uniquely vulnerable due to their dependence on parents or guardians and varying developmental stages. Key ethical challenges include informed consent and assent. So children cannot provide legal consent. Instead, researchers must obtain informed consent from parents or guardians while using age-appropriate methods to gain assent or a child's agreement. So for example, a 7-year-old in a diabetes trial might receive pictorial explanations or using a video alongside their parents' written consent form. Risk-benefit analysis. Pediatric studies must minimize risk unless it's directly benefiting the child, raising added scrutiny over the ethics of placebo controls. So for example, testing pain relievers where no comparable therapy exists might justify limited risk. Regulatory compliance laws such as FDA's 21 CFR 50 and Subpart D provide additional oversight. And in geriatric trials, we see older adults that face biological, cognitive, and social vulnerabilities, creating additional ethical concerns. So obtaining consent should include mitigation strategy for diminished decision-making capability due to dementia and requires alternative procedures for obtaining consent through legally authorized representatives. So for example, a 78-year-old patient with cognitive decline might have consent granted by a next of kin. Key points. Methodologies in conducting ethical pediatric and geriatric studies. So using age-specific interventions in pediatrics. For example, dosages are weight or surface area calculated, emphasizing formulations like liquids rather than pills. And adaptive designs allow for dynamic adjustments based on interim data, ensuring safety without halting trials. While in geriatric studies, we have interventions that address multiple chronic conditions like multimorbidity and require stratification of participants by frailty levels. For example, the stop-start tool identifies potentially inappropriate prescriptions for elderly patients to address drug therapy dilemma. Adaptive trial designs. The definition is to enable modification of study components without compromising integrity. For example, a trial on congestive heart failure offered drug adjusted drug strengths during an interim analysis as researchers identified unexpected interdrug variations in response. And decentralized study models to utilize telemedicine and home-based methods to collect real-time monitoring data. For example, the use of wearables and tracked nocturnal activity for dementia patients remotely to compare sleep-inducing therapies, and this reduced their dependency on visiting a site. Examples of ethical dilemmas and their resolution. Pediatric genetic studies, the challenge can be returning secondary findings like susceptibility to incurable diseases. The resolution would be offering genetic counseling pre-study and allowing participants to opt out of receiving certain results if they aren't interested in knowing that information. 2, placebo-controlled geriatric trials in Alzheimer's treatment. A challenge can be justifying placebo use as delaying interventions could lead to irreversible cognitive degradation. And the resolution could be a stepped wedge design that ensures eventual treatment for all participants while gathering high fidelity data. And geriatric bone strength study, a challenge can be elderly participants question the calcium supplementation's placebo risks, and the resolution, any nutritional counseling universally is included and ensures clinical benefit beyond the drug effects. Tip for managing ethical challenges and ensuring compliance: to build frameworks for consent, adopting visual aids and cultural translations for pediatric and geriatric populations, using proxy decision-making in geriatric settings with informed representatives, and to establish ethics oversight bodies. So regular institutional review boards reviews focusing on vulnerable groups, as well as providing tailored allocations, so implementing rolling arms or fractional dose strategies tailored to age stratifications, and prioritizing transparency, ensuring that all data from vulnerable groups are published, enabling wider useful applications. Summary tables. Ethical challenges in pediatrics, again, to review these topics that we've seen: consent and assent, that legal guardians provide consent and children assent when feasible, including with illustrated storybooks or videos or any kind of tool that is age appropriate to explain procedures. Risk-benefit analysis, only minimal risk should be used in less directly benefiting children. And regulatory compliance, so additional scrutiny under Subpart D, so special FDA approvals for trials involving children are required. Ethical challenges in geriatrics include obtaining consent, inclusivity, and safety monitoring. So we may need to include a proxy for consent, those who have cognitive decline, and we need to think about inclusivity and looking at how we can include frail individuals that are often overlooked in trials, and safety monitoring, so frequent checks for adverse events in multimorbid patients. Table 3, age-specific interventions. So in pediatrics, an example can be liquid formulations or weight-based dosing. And in geriatrics, frailty stratification that can result in reduced doses for geriatric oncology. Table 4, effective trial designs. So we have adaptive and decentralized trials. Adaptive trials are dynamic adjustments mid-study, like dose escalation based on safety endpoints. And decentralized trials are remote monitoring via wearables. So a dementia teletrial could be an example using sensor feeding. Tips for ethical compliance include building consent frameworks like multi-participant formats with video overlays and to increase engagement and data accuracy. Ensure data transparency, publish trial results regardless of the efficacy, and transparent IRB review. So there's IRB specializing in pediatrics and geriatrics, and therefore you can have minimized investigator delays. Multiple choice questions for review. Question 1, what is the primary difference between informed consent and assent in pediatric trials? A, assent is voluntary while consent is not. B, assent is not legally binding while consent is legally binding. C, assent allows parents to make decisions for their child. D, assent and consent refer to the same process. B, assent reflects the child's agreement to participate but does not fulfill the legal requirements of informed consent. Question 2. Which trial design is the most effective for comparing treatments in older adults stratified by frailty? A, placebo-controlled trials, B, adaptive trials, C, retrospective studies, and D, crossover trials. The answer is B, adaptive designs allow dynamic alterations responsive to patient-specific variables often seen in frail populations. Question 3, what must researchers especially consider when designing pediatric placebo-controlled trials? A, minimizing patient costs, B, avoiding undue parental influence, C, anticipated long-term benefits, and D, risk of withholding effective therapies. D, ethical placebos must avoid causing harm by denying a child an available and effective treatment. Question 4, which methodology specifically accommodates complex needs in geriatric studies? A, biomarker analysis, B, decentralized monitoring, C, multimorbidity stratification, and D, genetic profiling. The answer is C, multimorbidity stratification ensures therapies address overlapping conditions while reducing risks from redundant treatments. Question 5, why are pediatric trials legally required to undergo specialized ethical review processes? A, to prevent families from overburdening healthcare systems. B, to align with adult-focused therapeutic standards. C, to address developmental vulnerabilities unique to children. Or D, to maintain exclusive pharmaceutical benefits. The answer is C, pediatric populations are highly dependent, requiring unique safeguards to balance healthcare benefits and risk.